engineering education is not just about what the content should be, it is also about how we are teaching our students. And all the skill sets that's required, and the deep learning and what students are supposed to do, is supposed to be integrated. That's why it's not as easy as, okay, I don't have to look at team working or communication skill because somebody else can teach it. So it's not about that. How do engineers work in the workplace, and how do they use the skills? How do they use this knowledge in conjunction with the skills? So that is why we have to bring those into the classroom. Of course, doing it exactly as that in industry is quite impossible, unless they are almost third year or final year students. But there is a way of using effective teaching approaches, of integrating them. So it's not just about looking at what kind of content we have to update, it's also about how the students learn them. Now, doing this in a very well-designed manner, instructional design, we can actually accomplish all those things. It's not impossible, it has been shown, and if you are interested, there's also research in engineering education. Okay, so it's not about just the practice, it's also about studying the impact and what actually happens so that we can help our students learn better. Now, engineering is not easy to teach and it's not easy to learn. So there's a lot of issues that we can research on. That is why there is a lot of effort now on doing engineering education research. And for your information, we have managed to bring very good conferences, research-based conferences, like the International Research Symposium on Problem-Based Learning, the Research in Engineering Education Symposium, even in 2013. So we are bringing them again next year. I would urge you to join the community because you can see how vibrant it is. It's very much tied to what is happening internationally. And another thing is why we need to be involved in the community is because there is a very big gap in Asia. Not many people are doing engineering education in Asia until the 2005, 2010. Now there's a lot of efforts. India is coming up very fast. Korea is also coming up very fast. Japan is starting. China is also starting. But they don't have the capability to do a lot of research yet. And they have, like China, Korea, and Japan has language barrier because their English is not up to it. Yeah? So when I gave training there, they had to use translators. So Malaysia is actually well positioned to do this. And I would like to invite all of you to join the community because, now, this is another reason. When we do research and we publish, if there's any global initiatives, people will look at what has been published. So even when I was in China and giving workshops throughout Malaysia, people keep saying, we keep referring to all these Western countries. Why, we are Asians, we are Eastern people, we are Muslims, we are blah, 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 blah. Why don't, the Washington Accord and everything refer to us? I said, well, where's the literature? Can you find literature on engineering education from Asia? Not that many. Not that many strong ones. So in order for us to influence the policy, in order for us to take part in the governance, we need to start publishing our work. Because only then will others understand us. Because we'll be sharing our experience with them. Okay, so this is just a challenge to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khairiyah. That's quite enlightening to the engineering education. My next question is to Prof. Karim. As a practitioner and advocate of the use of technology in education, what is your personal reflection and your opinion, the biggest challenge with regards to the realization of 21st century education in Malaysia?
Thank you, Dr. Tazli. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
I am having a problem with my voice today, honestly. Well, it is very humbling to be here among the great educators here. I'm just a humble technologist here. But I come from a technology background, so I'm a strong advocate of technology. Well, the questions for the forum actually were leaked just before the forum started. So we are not really prepared. So I was actually frantically trying to Google some points here, but the internet is quite slow, so I failed to get some points. So what I'm going to say here is right on the top of my head. Well, let me start with one famous quote from John Dewey. Maybe you have come across. He said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And I think for us Muslim, we also have this, I think from Sayyidina Ali, he said, ajarlah anak kamu mengikut zamannya, kan? So what I'm trying to say here, technology is actually now available at our disposal. In fact, if the internet was good just now, I should be able to Google some points for my sharing here, because this is what technology now is about: learning on demand. Not just in time when you need the information, just in case when you need the information, just enough. You don't want to learn about a lot of things, but you just find the right information for that particular time for your needs. And learning can be more personalized. If we look at the United Nations competency framework, you can actually Google and get a full PDF copy. Technology is actually listed as one of the key competencies that everyone should have, including us, the academics. So if we talk about the essential competencies, basically, HR people will be able to tell me that at least 10 set of competencies. And United Nations has identified technology as one of the very critical competencies that we should acquire, we should master. In fact, if you read a book by Tony Wagner is one of the quite famous futurists. He listed 7 survival skills for the 21st century. Actually, these are actually a subset of the 21st century skills. 7 survival skills. Why 7? Because now everything, when you write a book now, starting with 7, it will sell. Just like 7 habits of successful people by Stephen Covey. But in one of those 7 skills, mastering technology is one of those skills. Because now, with a huge amount of information available in the internet now, to access those information, you need the technology. You need to be able to use the right tool. So this is another thing that's very important, I think, when we talk about the biggest challenge with regard to adopting and using technology appropriately in the context of classroom, in the context of teaching and learning. We should remember that technology is as good as the person behind the technology. I repeat again. Technology is as good as the person behind the technology. To me, technology is a tool, and the person is the enabler that would, use the technology appropriately to the right context, in the right way. Then only we can reap the benefit, we can derive the maximum benefit from using technology. We have millions of state-of-the-art technology. In fact, if you look at the statistic now, if we talk about communication technology, the internet, Malaysia is actually not that bad in the Asia-Pacific countries. We are actually, our internet penetration stands now around 66-67%. That's quite good, quite commendable. The social media penetration is 140%. That was the latest statistic I managed to Google just now, as of March 2015. The social media penetration, what about the mobile devices ownership? It's also close to 100%, 94% if I'm mistaken. So with this technology, in the hand of our students, how do we leverage that? So another phrase that I really like to use in most of my presentation about technology. Technology is a tool. So a fool with a tool is still a fool. Yeah? I repeat again. A fool with a tool is still a fool. So in order to use a tool wisely, then we need to educate, we need to train our people, our lecturers, our academics, our students, to leverage and to optimize and maximize the use of technology. So this is where the professional development program, like what CETaL is doing, like what my center, CDE, USM is doing, like what ACAP now is doing also at the national level. So in order but the main challenge, I would say, is, and the biggest stumbling block is the mindset. Because we are so used with, using chalk and ball, and still we are using chalk and ball. And there's nothing wrong using chalk and ball as a tool for our teaching. In fact, I wrote a 3-part article, published, you can Google, published in the online, I don't know, it's not a journal, it's called The Educationist. You can Google that. I wrote 3-part article talking about chalk and board or technology. So I always say that we can still use chalk and board. You don't even have to use technology. If you can design your learning, you can design your delivery, like Datin Norrizan said just now, the learning design, the 21st century learning design. So we have to look at our role as an educator. It's more than just a teacher who teach, but we want to look at ourselves as a learning designer. If we understand that concept, designing learning using the proper sound pedagogical principles, and if we can integrate the technology as a tool, as an enabler, seamlessly. So that's the challenge. Changing the mindset of, rather than using technology to just make learning fun. Of course, we want to make learning fun, but if we use technology without setting a specific outcome that we want to achieve in terms of learning, then it will be pointless, it will be useless. So again, another challenge that I would say of getting our academic staff to adopt and adapt the use of technology in teaching and learning is the enculturation. And I would say this is the biggest challenge when we lead the Center for Professional Development, getting the staff to come to our training, changing the mindset that acquiring the skill to use technology is not something that you want to force on you, want to impose on you to do, but something that you need to learn so that you can acquire the skill and you can use technology effectively to achieve whatever outcome that we have set out in our program. So that's for now. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Prof. Karim. So Prof. Karim have highlighted that it's okay to use chalk and board, as long as it fulfills the 21st century skill set, which is learning design. So those are the things that we need to discover. The similar challenge with what Prof. Karim highlighted is like to give the training to the educators is quite difficult. To call them to the event, to the agenda so that they be trained is a challenge actually. But we'll take that challenge forward, inshallah. Next question is to Prof. Maznah. According to Howard Gardner, this is the first book that you introduced to us in your first talk early this year. In this book, 5 Minds for the Future, there are 5 types of minds that we need to nurture in our students. The disciplined mind, the synthesizing mind, the creative mind, the respectful mind, and the ethical mind. Do you think this is what we're looking for in our students coming from 21st century education, especially in nurturing the values in our students?
Thank you, Dr. Tazli. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good afternoon to everyone.
as I said earlier to Dr. Tazli, this question only needs a yes and a no answer. But being a professor, I suppose when you give a professor a mic, I'll stop after 5 minutes, right? Now, how many of you here are familiar with Howard Gardner's 5 Minds of the Future? Anyone? Very familiar, or have seen the book, or have never heard it before? They have seen the book. Everyone knows about it then. The answer is, oh, okay, fine. Right, and I suppose everyone would be familiar with our higher education blueprint. When we say, the first move is that about holistic entrepreneurial graduates. What does a holistic entrepreneurial graduate look like? Do we know? For engineering students, what would they look like? Okay. If we were to see an engineering graduate, what would be the things that we would say about that particular graduate? Is it the way he dresses up? Is it the way he walks? Is it the way that he talks? Or is it the way that he solves problems? Is it the way that he thinks? The way of his thinking? The ways of knowing? The tools that he uses to solve problems? That is what I think the disciplined mind is. As a lecturer, we probably need to be consciously thinking about what does a disciplined mind for my particular discipline look like, and how do I enable that? How do I trigger that? Which button do I switch in my students to make that happen? Now, for the synthesizing mind, you don't want a graduate who only uses one solution to every problem. Therefore, we don't just teach them about engineering, we also give them other courses in the social sciences, in the co-curriculum, so that they are able to use more than just one way of solving problems. This is when we are looking at synthesizing mind. So as a program, when we look at our program, how do we ensure that our program is also developing that synthesizing mind? Do our students have enough tools to enable them to solve problems and become creative? So once you have the disciplined mind and synthesizing mind, automatically you would be able to be creative because you have many tools to solve problems and be innovative. Now, the fourth one is a respectful mind. I hear many times that the lecturer says our higher education students nowadays are so disrespectful of their lecturers. They bump into you, they don't say hello. They don't even know who you are. They probably don't even know who the VC is. I mean, have you ever asked a student, what's the name of your VC? Anyway, just because I've heard that from master students say, the Vice Chancellor, I don't know, what was his name? It's like, you're a student here, find out. And who is your dean even? No, they just come weekend and go off, take classes. Now we hope that respectful mind is being taught at home. When they come to us, they are already respectful. We wish that when they come to us, we don't have to teach them anymore about respectful mind. But we need to design that into our teaching and learning environment or activities too. And of course the ethical mind. I think this morning we also talked about plagiarism, about not respecting other people's work. And good to hear that USM has a policy on plagiarism. So I hope other universities are also looking at how do we handle the unethical mindsets, not just from the students alone, but also lecturers. Do I say something? Sometime? Okay. Now, when we do training in CETaL, I always like to ask the lecturers, what is it that we value in our student learning? If it is disciplined mind, if it is developing a creative mind, so what do we do about it then? So what is the teaching that makes that learning happen? So we look at our teaching and we look at it to see whether is there any problem. Most people don't like to admit that there is a problem in their teaching, because what it means is that if you say there's a problem in my teaching, that means that you're not a good teacher. But to do CETaL, to improve what you're doing, to help your student in the learning, you have to make something familiar, unfamiliar, which is your practice, your teaching. And knowing that we have problems, that will allow us to examine our practice, looking at our philosophy of teaching, if we have one, and design our curriculum and instruction to enable all the skill sets that was mentioned by earlier panels, and to enable the development of that 5 minds. Now, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maznah. Okay, now we'd like to move into the second round. It's more about realizing the dream towards achieving 21st century educational excellence. And I would like to throw this question to Prof. Karim, because you have promoted the utilization of technology in your classroom. For example, you have used many tools and explored many approaches, such as flipped classroom and blended learning. You have also advocated the use of many websites that promote fun learning, because I've seen you giving us the flipped classroom session. It's quite fun. It's very fun. Okay, and then the remaining participants would like to call you again to come and give us some more training. From your point of view, can you share your success stories of failures maybe with the rest of us in implementing these classroom strategies?
Thank you, Dr. Tazli. Probably I won't dwell on the failures, but more on the success. I have many success stories, my personal stories, so perhaps I will share a few. Well, I'm very visible online. You just type my name, YBhg, Karim, Abdul, Karim, Alias. The first page, the second page, you will see, probably most of it, the link to my various websites, blogs, and all other things, online, YouTube channel, banyak lah, eh? But when you go to the third page, please be careful, because Abdul Karim is also a famous, seems to be a famous terrorist. As you go to the fourth page and fifth page, so it's kind of a mix of Abdul Karim Alias from the S7 and Abdul Karim Alias from Abdul Karim, a terrorist so far. Well, yes, I'm very visible online because I believe with the internet connectivity that we have, with all the tools that we have, web-based, with all the free resources we have, it is such a shame or a waste if we don't really use all those tools. And I have a YouTube channel where a lot of my teaching resources are available, my lectures. And in the last year and this year, I started to produce a lot of so-called bite-sized learning resources in the form of short videos, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes the most. And it's where, if I want to explain very important concept, and I will produce like 5 minutes video or 10 minutes video, and I will upload to YouTube and various other websites. And all these things, plus all the open educational resources or OER, I use all these resources as part of my flipped classroom strategies. Okay? Of course, the flipped classroom itself is something that like one day workshop will be good to have, so that we can share a lot of strategies, different strategies that I use. But because of sharing my resources online, it has given me actually visibility, because my materials are accessible by people around the world. For example, my YouTube channel now has close to 300,000 views from 2009. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see the list of, for each video that I have. Currently I have 140 40 videos on my channel. If you go through each video and you see the comments below the video, probably 99% of those comments are all very, very positive. Not to mention that the email that I receive on frequent basis, this email comes from the lecturers teaching the course that I'm teaching, and also from the students taking the course from all over the world. My YouTube videos actually being accessed by viewers in almost, we have 190 almost all countries in the world. I would say when I look at the analytics in YouTube, and the good thing, for example, I teach one course on food processing, on palm oil production. So I have a number of lectures, short lectures on 10 minutes, 15 minutes on palm oil production, palm oil processing. And number one video, the top 10 video in my YouTube channel is actually on palm oil production. And when I check the analytics, who actually viewed my video, it was actually a surprise to me because, of course, the top one is from Malaysia, but the second one is actually from the United States. And the third one from some European countries. And one of the success story, I would say, is actually the feedback. Have you imagined that in our research, when we publish our paper, it will go through, the manuscript will go through peer review process. Then it come back, hopefully with minor revision. Otherwise, we'll come back with major revision, but it's still good news. We can still do some revision and resubmit, and hopefully finally we'll publish. The process or the mechanism is in place to make sure that our paper will be of highest quality. Then it will be published in Tier 1 or Tier 2 journal, hopefully. That's a peer review system. But what about our teaching? I've been teaching for 23 years now. But so far, none of my courses have been peer reviewed officially. Of course, don't talk about NQA. All those are actually on paper. But if we go down, if someone comes to audit and really see what you are doing in your own classroom, whether you are doing what you say in the NQA documents, I don't know, there's a big question mark there. So our teaching has never been peer reviewed. Do you want to open your classroom to get someone to observe your classroom? A lot of, all this while actually our classroom is always regarded as a secret garden. I call it secret garden. Because what happens in the classroom is between us and the students. For all you know that sometimes maybe we teach wrong things, we teach wrong principles, we teach wrong facts. Nobody knows. There is no accountability. That's why I call it secret garden. So now we have the opportunity now. If we put our, teaching resources now. In fact, I have my whole 40 minutes, 45 minutes whole class recorded. I put it on YouTube. You can watch it. And now I can get a free peer review in the form of email coming from all these lecturers teaching the course, in the form of students giving their feedback, in the form of lecturers giving their feedback. These are the peer review. This is the best peer review that I can, ever have for my course. So this is something that I would promote. And one story that really, to share with you. One day I received an email from a consultant, palm oil consultant from Vienna. And he asked me in the email, have you received the chocolate that I sent you a few days ago? At that time I haven't received the chocolate yet. And he said, I sent you this chocolate as an appreciation because I found your video on palm oil and that video was very good. In fact, I used the video in my consultancy and so on. And now I want to use your video in my book. In fact, apparently it's an ebook, and he wants to include that video in his ebook. And he asked for my permission. And as a token of appreciation, he sent me the chocolate. I received the chocolate a few days after that. And true enough, it's already melted. He asked me the email. I hope it's not melted by the time you receive it. It's already melted. And that's one. Another story, I received an email from a very big company in the US, confectionery company. And this company invited me they invited me to the industry symposium that they have in the US, and as keynote speaker, and they will pay everything, plus a few days of sightseeing and so on in the vacation. The reason why they invited me because they found, they came across a video by lecture on YouTube on halal. I was talking about halal gelatin, and confectionery company are using a lot of gelatin, and they are into halal business now because $1 billion are there. So they are looking for experts to talk about halal gelatin. So these are only 2 stories that I want to share with you because of limited time, but I have many more personal stories. In fact, I have all the email that sent to me and all the comments on YouTube. Actually, I save it if I want to share, to show people, not to show off, but to share the good stories, the success stories. If we use technology and leverage technology, not only our students in the confine of our physical classroom will benefit, but a wider audience globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Karim. So let's flip. Okay. We have actually a few of our CETaL grant recipients doing flip classroom, and possibly, inshallah, next year when they got their findings and they can share with you the output, and hopefully they can also impart the change for others, so that we can also start to innovate our learning approach in our class. The next question is to Dr. Khairiyah. Just now, Prof. Karim is on flipped classroom and blended learning, but you are very well known in promoting team-based learning, such as cooperative and problem or project-based learning in your class. How does this learning approach can help in achieving 21st century engineering educational excellence? Can you share the values that can be nurtured in this team-based learning approach? What's the difference with the current project? Normally with project, okay, this is a project, and then finish it, and then you mark it down. So,
thank you, Dr. Tazli. Well, basically, in using cooperative learning, problem-based learning, we have instituted the support to develop the students' skills. Like when we say team working, what is team working? What is it? What is in our mental picture when we say team working? In a typical engineering classroom, we will just group the students together and then say, good luck, here's your project, right? And we just leave them to it. But is there really team working in the group? Seriously. Now, I've made this mistake before, and I know it wasn't working. So, if you look in the literature, cooperative learning is among the best that helps students in developing team-based learning. So that's where I went. And if you look in the literature also, there's a lot of work on how to develop cooperative, how to actually produce cooperative learning, how to implement it in your classrooms. For example, our students will always, if you just group them together and give them some tasks to do, they will always divide the work. Let's say there's 4 of them, they'll divide it into 4. On the day it's due, they staple it together and give it to you. Is that team working? No, that's not. That's individual work, clipped together. So how are they working together? They're not. They're just dividing it initially, and then that's it. They're working individually. Team working would force them to have roles and collaborate. They have to have face-to-face interaction, whether it's virtually or physically. They have to know how to decide on the approach. They have to have a goal. What is the expectation? To what extent are they doing this? They have to decide on the best approach and the best solution that they want. And they have ownership over what they're submitting. And they check on each other's work, and they actually help each other if they get stuck. So they will actually produce a higher quality work than that individually done, stapled at the end kind of work. So that's the difference. Sometimes we think we know that students will be able, assume that students will be able to do it. But if we lead them to it, they don't know what is actually team working. And this is really the sad thing, because students think that is team working, because they don't have the correct definition of what is team working in their minds. So when we look at things like problem-based learning, it's not just about giving problems. It's how you design the problem to mimic the workplace or the real world scenario and actually immerse the students in the problem so that they learn at a deep level and at the same time they develop all these other 21st century skills. Now, when you start to look at doing these things, we have done research in our own implementation and we have found that the impact is really immense. And the things that students go through actually develop positive attitude, positive values, not just the deep learning aspect, not just the skills, they actually develop positive attitude. And they actually learn how to interact properly with other people. So this is really the amazing part. And if we can nurture this systematically throughout the curriculum, we can have that 21st century graduates that we really want. So it's not just about having it in individual classrooms. You can also design this systematically throughout the curriculum. And it's not just about making them aware of what's happening in industry. You can also design community-based problems. Have you ever heard of service learning? So this is bringing community problems into the classroom. And service learning provide very good problems for developing empathy and developing the caring attitude that we would like our graduates to have. So it's really endless. It's really, really endless. And just like what Prof. Karim went through, when you start to document what you're doing, by the way, people come into my classroom all the time. Since 2005, I've had people doing PhD from other places coming to my class. And I have no qualms about it, because I learned a lot from them. So I started doing research in my own classroom, although somebody else always collected the data for me. So when we do the research in our classroom and we start to document and share them, that was also how I became invited as plenary speakers in conferences in Canada, in North America, in Korea, in India, in China, and in other places. So please do not think that when we are doing good teaching, it's going to be confined within the four walls of our classroom. Do research, do it well, do research, share your work, and the world is the limit.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khairiyah. The next question is to Prof. Maznah. Prof. Maznah. Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, or CETaL, this is the term that has been, I think most of the UTP community knew about it this year. This has been widespread. CETaL, what is CETaL actually? It was inspired by Ernest Boyer in 1990. Boyer's model of scholarship promotes the integration between research and teaching. There are four models of scholarships. The first one is scholarship of teaching, scholarships of discovery, scholarships of application, and scholarships of integration. As the National CETaL Trainer, how can we achieve 21st century educational excellence by the implementation of CETaL? Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Tazli. I'm listening with thinking about what Prof. Karim is saying, what Prof. Khairiyah is saying. They're describing their CETaL work. So that is how CETaL can be implemented to bring us to the 21st century education excellence. Right. What we need to do is to be conscious about what is it that we want our student to be, to learn. Then we design the instruction to enable our student to get there. So therefore the teaching that makes the learning happen. Then we let others into our classroom. If they don't come into the classroom, we collect data, we write about what we are doing in the classroom, we publish it, put it online, or we videotape it, just the way Prof. Karim does, and share. Because at the end of the day, it's about sharing best practices, what we do in the classroom. And why do we do CETaL? Because we're looking at teaching leadership. We're not looking at just transmitting information, the usual, the old ways of teaching. We are looking at transforming what we are doing and transforming the students and transforming ourselves. And we are also looking at extending our knowledge in teaching in our discipline. And why CETaL? Because CETaL is evidence-based, which means that if you claim that you are doing a good job, excellent job in your classroom, what is the evidence? So you learn to collect evidence from day one and start to design a research that allows you to collect data so that at the end of the day you can say, this is what I did in my classroom and it worked with this group of students. Perhaps you would like to try it too. Okay, and having evidence of what we do in the classroom, having what works for us, that will also support our program review. So if everyone is doing research on their classroom, collecting evidence of what worked in their classroom, when you look down to review your program, you will have a lot of data to say that, yes, we should move forward, continue doing what we are doing, or we change because of what we have found out in our classroom. And the outcome of CETaL work is also good for the assessment. Because if you are doing a lot of work in the teaching and learning, providing the kind of learning environment for the students, giving them all kinds of learning experience, but we have not changed assessment, therefore, it's not going to work. It's still not going to work. So therefore, once we change the teaching and learning experience for our students, then we have to also look at assessment and change. And the other benefit is accreditation of our programs. Once our program is accredited, we are opening our door to the world. Students from outside there will want to come to our program because it is accredited because of what we do in our teaching. And the other thing is also, we're looking at partnership among the faculty, the staff, and the students. By doing CETaL work, you don't just do it alone. You would also like to work with others across the discipline to see what works for you and what works for other people, so it works for the institution. And doing that will also help us to develop the community of practice, good practice, excellent teaching in the university. Therefore, you don't have to worry about providing CPD for them and they're not coming. Okay? And in a way, we are looking at professionalization of our work as a scholar teacher, because right now it is not considered as a profession yet. So we have to keep working towards it with more CETaL work, and perhaps we can say, look, we have all the evidence to show that these are things that we are doing, and we are professionals. And the other thing is, something that we can do to support this professionalization is through the certification of our teachers. So meaning that we introduce CETaL to them from day one they enter the university, and when we give them the first teaching and learning program that they attend, the kursus asas pengajaran pembelajaran, we have to already build the CETaL into their learning. Right, and I suppose having CETaL, by implementing CETaL, we will achieve the 21st century learning, and also our teachers, scholar teachers, will be referred, relevant, and respected. That's in the blueprint. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Maznah. I believe as well, CETaL is a way of how we do CQI in class. Normally, when we always refer to the term CQI, we always think it as a problem. But CQI is basically the way how we make a reflection to our teaching and how we improve further from that. And I think CETaL is the best approach in order for us to do CQI to our own classroom. Finally, a question to Datin, Dr. Norrizan. Datin, you have been in the education business for over than the past 20 years. In your opinion, what are the major obstacles that are faced by the various sectors in Malaysian education? in realizing the 21st century education? How can the education business help the higher learning institutions to produce quality 21st century education graduates?
Thank you, Dr. Tazli. So, my response to the first question, there are two questions in that. The first one is regarding the obstacles that educators or education institutions face in trying to deliver 21st century education. I think by and large, there are many obstacles. Some, a lot of people will say, will refer to poor infrastructure, technology. I'm not saying that's not true, but I think by and large, and first and foremost, I think it's about the mind share, right? So there is not enough in-depth understanding about 21st century education, hence very little mind share to implement it successfully. You don't understand, or you have very superficial understanding of it, one cannot expect to actually implement it successfully, because you will not have clear objectives, what you want to achieve in delivering your 21st century education at the institutional level or 21st century learning activities at the classroom level. So educators, decision makers, policy makers at the institution level first need to have clarity in terms of what is 21st century education for that institution, like for UTP, for example. What are the few objectives that UTP wants to establish, claim that it has successfully achieved 21st century education? Are we clear about that, right? So that's an example of having that mindset in place. To me, that's the greatest challenge. And then, when you look at technology, you're clear as well what technology to be put in place. 21st century education must position the learner requirements first, not technology first. Technology will come appropriately when we understand what requirements the learners need. But oftentimes, when institutions approach me, they're always approaching me with the technology issue first. My infrastructure is so bad, we don't have enough money to buy these facilities, right? So I will turn back and ask, what are your objectives? Then they see they don't need to spend that much in the first place, right? So often think about the learner's requirements, and this is the right mindset, at least for a start, before going into a technology issue. So that's the main obstacle that I would think. That constantly what I am faced with, I encounter that. It's the perception, understanding about 21st century education, and the mindset about it. So we need to be clear in terms of objectives of the 21st century education that we want to deliver, and understand learner requirements behind that. And this should be fronting, right? And the rest will come into place. So those are in terms of the obstacles. And your second question has to do with what the industry can contribute. So I like to refer to the blueprint. The blueprint has the academia-industry collaboration as one of the shifts. It is not there because someone thinks it should be there. It is there because, one, it is very, very important, because as we have discussed earlier, it's got to do with the curriculum, it's got to do with the skills. So these form the delivery. That's the delivery. Otherwise, we have no delivery, right? So that will come from the industry. Industry needs to provide the input so that whatever you are delivering is relevant. So that is given. Second, why is that? Because whatever collaboration that's existing from the industry perspective right now is not optimal enough. There is much much more collaboration that can happen. If we look at the US, for example, that's a very good model, and even in Germany and the US are a good model of academia-industry collaboration. Of course, we will say, oh, of course they can afford to do that because they have a very mature, established industry to support that. But sometimes we need to think, it can't be a chicken and egg question to why is the industry established. They've got a strong academia support. That can also be an argument, right? So I think it's not a one-way relationship, it ought to be a two-way relationship, right? So before I talk about how we can better the academia-industry relationship, allow me to highlight to you the current conventional practice of academia-industry relationship, at least from the industry perspective. One, curriculum update, right? That's being practiced by all institutions, right? So the common practice is you invite us, in Rome, somewhere, locked us up for maybe a couple of days to give inputs, right? So sometimes it is really meaningful and in-depth, but most of the time we feel that it's like rubber stamping. You have pretty much decided, not you, UTP, but in general, institutions have pretty much decided, hey, we want to do this because, we attended various conferences and this is the way it's going, right? It doesn't matter what you say, we just want to get your input that you have attended this meeting. So that's rubber stamping, right? Some institutions, right? But not all, right? So it can be regarded as that. So that's one practice that is ongoing right now, conventional. Second is internship. Right? So internship, for some reason, always happens in the third year, right? And oftentimes, still in the third year, students are not ready, even in the third year, because the view is, they have enough knowledge already. But when they go to the employment space for the internship, is they discover that they have many things that they don't know, right? Even if they do know, they don't know how to apply. And the employers, from the industry perspective, you're not ready. We do not want to give you real tasks. So we give you mundane tasks, right? So in an organization like Microsoft, there's no faxing to do because it's all paperless. There's no coffee to make because we make ourselves, right? So what is there to be done? So it's really mundane work that's assigned to them and creating frustration amongst the students and disappointment for the employers, right? So this is the current practice. End of the study, third year normally internship, right? So third is adjunct professorship. A lot of universities do that, and I'm an adjunct professor also here and at some other institutions, right? Adjunct professor, right, is just another lecture. And the students go, oh, another lecture, right? Well, with some different, some inputs from the industry, of course, but it's just another lecture. And a lot of industry players are not used to giving lectures to students, right? The only difference is some relation examples from the industry. So these are the conventional practices, right? So how do we move forward to enhance this academia-industry relationship? Now let's look at the curriculum updates. I don't know for what reason it's got to be a few years and updated, right? Only to realize that, yeah, 5 years, my God, So IT, for example, we know it changes very rapidly, right? So you take 5 years to it's obsolete. So there has got to be a better way of getting curriculum update. We don't have to wait 5 years, right? You risk your curriculum being obsolete. And engineering has its fundamental principles, granted, right? But with technology being so pervasive and change rapidly, it is infused and embedded in those principles, right? So you need to get industry updates. So waiting 5 years or 2 years is relatively late. So why isn't there a continuous engagement, right? Discussion, discourse. It doesn't have to be, here's our proposed curriculum. For example, one way of getting that is doing joint research. The best way of getting insights into the industry is doing a collaborative research. And this is how the US, many of the big institutions in the US, like MIT and Stanford are doing, Yale, they have very good collaboration with the industries through joint research. I'll give you one example of research with Microsoft that you can do is to find out, may not apply to engineering because I have very little knowledge of engineering. For example, the impact of our productivity tools in raising your efficiency level, for example, amongst your students, amongst your lecturers, because you do have that in UTP. Then you also discover that they are actually not using it. So is it really 21st century skill that you are embedding if you're not using the tools that are supposed to enable them to do collaborative, real-time collaboration? Right? So that's a simple research that will be so meaningful to Microsoft, and we're willing to even to invest in it, right? And we can escalate this finding to law in the US to enhance the features of our tools, right? Just a simple example. So that, you get better insight. When you have insight into this, you imagine how effective you can deliver this as well in your lecture because you have the insights, right? So that's one in terms of curriculum updates. Second, let's go to the internship. Now, why does the internship, my question this morning, have to happen only at the end? Right, because the assumption is they have enough knowledge, right? But they still are not ready. Right? So work backwards, right? So why not expose them, distribute that internship across semesters? Maybe not the first semester, right? Second semester, for example, where they have certain level of knowledge and skills, and you need to really tell the industry what outcomes you want from the internship. And I am at the receiving end, right? So sometimes I don't know what outcomes the institution wants from us. Hey, what do they want? Because they're not ready. We did not give with our assignments, because that will risk my corporate KPIs, right? So there's not enough information given to us. What outcomes you want. And it doesn't have to be a long list. It can be really, really of high quality, 2 objectives, 2 skill sets, maybe, and also application of certain knowledge. Very few, but when they leave, we can help you focus on achieving those outcomes, but you are assured that they have this quality, right? But we have never received those outcomes stated to us clearly. So we don't know what to monitor, right? So that's in terms of internship, distributed across the semesters and really structured with specific outcomes to focus on. And it doesn't have to be, now it's like, open fire, right? If you're lucky, you hit 1 skill or 1 knowledge. So we've got to be really structured in terms of that. And third is adjunct professorship. To me, we are happy to come and give lectures. Right? For me, because I have experience in giving lectures to students, because that's my background. But for many industry players, they do not. If they are good orator, good, But some are not. They don't know how to address students, right? But the best way is for this. Why does the industry player have to come to the institution? Why not bring students over a period of time and shadowing we call it, shadow an engineer, for example, at work. Just shadow for them to understand. It can be a week, it can be 3 days, just shadow, right? So that's an example. That is way better than the lecture. That is real meaningful insight. Or call a group of students and sit with a group of employees to have a question and answer. But make sure they come with the right questions to ask. Right? So I'm not saying eliminate the adjunct professorship. I like to do that. But I think for the sake of the students and the institutions, these are 2 suggestions that I think we can consider, and I hope that's helping us to think a little bit out of the box. Thank you.
Thank you, Datin. Okay, round 3. This is basically question and answer session. So we'd like to open the floor for question, and you can point to any panels that would like to answer your question. So we can take up to 3 to 4 questions. Anyone? Prof.
Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon. Before any others take the mic, I have to ask this question. This has been on my mind for quite some time. Every time we do a curriculum review, more and more courses are added, more and more credit hours are added, because the knowledge is increasing, as I say, exponentially increasing. Now, for the 21st century education, it's going to exponentially increase beyond our imagination. So, is it that we have to prepare an education for our students that will be able to address future and complex problems? Which means, if it is future and complex problems, then we have to accept the fact that it is not possible to teach them everything. They have to know beyond their own disciplines, right? So between knowledge and now the skill set becomes more important to give them the skills, for example, to find knowledge. I think Prof. Karim mentioned just-in-time knowledge kind of thing. To use the resources, that ability. Now the ability to work with others, team-based ability that Prof. Khairiyah mentioned. So, I would like to hear comments from you. Knowledge versus skill sets when it comes to 21st century education, which becomes important in our curriculum.
Do both at the same time. You can do both at the same time.
It's impossible to teach everything.
No, it's not. Because as the students work in their team to learn, they're learning the knowledge. And when they learn together, they're trying to synthesize the knowledge together and they're learning to learn. That is the most important thing now. They have to learn so that they don't become obsolete. It's impossible to teach everything. And you don't want your students to have an expiry date stamped on their forehead. Good only 1-2 years after graduation. So they have to learn how to learn. And in setting up the learning environment, as they learn, you put them through situations where they have to develop the skill sets with your support. Now, the beautiful thing about problem-based learning is that it is based on very strong educational principles on how to support students to develop a whole range of skill sets. That's really, when you look at it again, it maps the 21st century skill sets. So it is possible that they learn and they develop the skill sets at the same time, except that you have to be careful and space out. As they start to learn how to learn, it's going to take time. So you have to space out how the time that it takes for them to learn with your guidance, developing the skills, and not put too much in the content of the syllabus. But once they acquire the learning ability, then they will come up to speed. But initially, you have to be patient with them. So work very hard initially, but then as they develop the skills, it's going to be very easy. I have very smart students coming to me and saying, you know what, like I'm teaching process control. Most chemical engineers hate process control, right? Prof. Karim also doesn't like process control. So anyway, it's because they just see numbers and calculations and they don't see the physical meaning behind it. That's rubbish. You have to understand what it means. But knowing how difficult process control is, I have students coming up to me, doctor, the content of this class is not so difficult after all, even though you don't teach us, you use problem-based learning. But you know what's most difficult? It's trying to work together in a team. I don't know about you, but the students really, I can see them mature in the class. So it's not just about having them go through the learning process and acquiring the content. It's also about developing them as a whole.
That's an interesting question, actually. It doesn't have to be that complex. You can impart that knowledge and indirectly allow the students to acquire the skills through the manner you impart that knowledge. That is why 21 CLD is very important, such that your educators only have to think about what knowledge they want to impart and what activities that they want to introduce to impart that knowledge, and that activities will promote what skills. So through that learning activity, the students acquire the knowledge and the skills. It doesn't have to be separate, and the best way is not to treat the two separately, right? So that is 21 CLD, where you actually collapse all these through a learning activity, right? And my thinking is, and what I have observed, and I'm convinced that it has to be this way, that 21st century skills are best acquired, not taught, right? Whosoever who can convince me that HOTS can be taught, I think I would really like to talk to that person.
Any more questions? We can take 2 more questions. Anybody?
The tazli, maybe I just add on.
Okay.
Actually, I try to refrain myself. Well, I think we have to move away from the content-centric kind of mindset, because as long as we still thinking in terms of giving content, within that 14 weeks time, then that is the reason why, every day our lecturers go to the classroom, the 15 minutes or 1 hour, they just want to run through the syllabus, simply because they want to finish all the content of the syllabus by week, maybe, preferably week 12, so they have some time, So some of my colleagues are, they are very happy when they manage to finish even, the syllabus by week 10, So they are very happy, but they actually never ask what actually students have learned. So I think we have to move away from the content-centric. But at the same time, I think maybe we can be guided with what actually in the engineering we have the outcome, the outcome is the learning outcome, all those things. We have defined the specific outcome, and maybe we need to define also the specific, the essential skill set, the essential competencies. Then we can break it down into how we design it into the learning design, and we can use a appropriate model like classroom and so on, in order to ensure that skill sets will be acquired at the end of the day. And for example, one of the skill sets will be critical thinking, problem solving skill set. Another one, which to me very, very important nowadays in the era of the internet, is the skill, as Tony Wagner said, is one of the 7 survival skills. The skill to, use information wisely, how to search for the right information, how to filter the information, how to make sense of information, how to synthesize the information, how to apply the information into something useful in the new scenario, and so on. With this skill, when they go out, with the essential knowledge that they have and competencies that they have, they can do almost everything, basically. So I think that what we should focus on.
Thank you. For President Maznah?
Say something to it. Thank you. I teach instructional design, and I train instructional designers. I usually like to anchor my teaching in problem. So they get the problems and the assignments first day of class. It'll be a big project. And I'm using David Merrill's first principles of designing instruction. And by anchoring in the problem, then you can activate their knowledge, whether they have it, they don't have it, then you demonstrate what is it that they need to do. Then they will, by demonstrating it, like telling the student, I show you how to do it, now you show me. This is when you get them involved in it, and finally they're able to integrate and solve that problem. So that's, I walk the talk in a way. So of course they are not teaching you, I'm giving you this project, so you worked on it. But weekly, you have to show me. Because I will show you when you need it, just in time. Thank you.
Prof, maybe now you can give 1 minute summary from what we were trying to draw some conclusion from the sharing session today. Conclusion, just 1 minute conclusion.
I'm trying to stop.
Yeah,
Again, another homework that he gives.
On this spot.
I need time to learn the skill. The conclusion. Okay, we are all concerned about developing graduates who will meet that 21st century learning skills, or graduate who can hit the ground running, I would say. And we are struggling with finding ways, how do we match what we know in higher education with what the industry have out there, and with what the raw products that we have coming into, or rather the students who are coming into our system, and we have to turn them into something within 3 years. So our question is, how do we do it? What do we do about it? How do we work with partners out there? I think we have to really work very closely with industry, so that they are there from day one when the students come in, looking at what kind of students we have and how do we mold them, move them to the way that 21st century graduates should be.
Yeah, sure, thank you. But Khairiyah?
Okay, Prof. Maznah have concluded well enough just now. Can I just do it? Just joking. Well, I think there's another thing that, we talked about the information overload that we are facing a lot of the time. There's lots and lots and lots of information out there. Prof. Karim talked about information mining, but and the knowledge, what should we teach our students. But I really remember this rule of thumb given by Oxford. He's a very well-known educational psychologist in the US. Now, in terms of being knowledge-centered in his How People Learn framework, the key to deciding what to make compulsory for our students is to ask ourselves if this knowledge is missing from that student. And let's say you're training civil engineers. So if this knowledge is missing from the student, can we still call the students civil engineers? If the answer is no, then that is a required component of the knowledge. But if the answer is yes, the students will still be civil engineers even without that knowledge. That shows that that knowledge can be relegated to be an elective course. So that's the rule of thumb. If that is really the fundamental and you cannot call that person a mechanical engineer without that knowledge, that shows it's a required course. Okay? So in this age, we have to let the students also some room and choice to decide what they want to learn. So with all the fundamentals, decide on the fundamentals, the rest delegate it to elective courses. That's one thing. And also, as much as we want to be the best in everything, this is not the age of competition. We are so left behind in Malaysia. We keep wanting everybody to praise us and say we're the best. But this is the age of collaboration. We need to collaborate and work together so that we become the best. We together become the best. So, even when Dr. Tazli said, are you sure you want to collaborate with us? What if we become better than you? Blah, blah, blah. I said, never mind, even if you become better, that will be a contribution to the country. So this is the age when we collaborate together And if you see the kind of collaboration that's being done out there at the international level, it will really put us to shame, because we can never answer the big questions and overcome the big problems if we don't collaborate. So, we have to think of ways across university borders to work together across industries, and I hope that we can finally overcome the big problems that we're having together.
Thank you, Dr. Karim. Datin, your final message?
Okay. I'm not going to attempt to summarize what the other these outstanding panelists have said, because I don't think I can come near that. So I'm just going to summarize what I have said. I think if we want to make sure that our graduates are competitive, education institutions must rethink their education delivery, taking into consideration 3 key components: the knowledge, and very important, skills are often ignored, and of course values. You want to look into that. And in doing this, understand the attributes of Gen Y, so we can address all these 3 key components in meaningfully, and then to establish a relationship with the industry to get that really optimal relationship, and not just a superficial relationship, by engaging the industry in an in-depth, integrated fashion. So that's what I think I have said.
Thank you, Datin. Finally, Prof. Karim, your wisdom.
Wisdom. Well, I think we at the university, our core function is to shape the mind of the future national leaders. Our students are the future national leaders. So we are, the university itself is actually in the business of capacity, building the capacity for the future for our nation. So when we talk about 21st century education, I mentioned this morning, we should align the kind of skills that we want our students to acquire, the skill set. But at the same time, we should also acquire and master those skills. If we want to teach chemical engineering, we should be competent in chemical engineering. By the same analogy, the same extension, if we want to teach a 21st century student the 21st century skills, we ourselves should have those skills. So I urge all our friends here to, work together with the university, with Dr. Tazli, the CETaL, the professional development program. I strongly believe professional development program is an excellent program that all of our academic staff should attend at their own will, rather than being forced or imposed by the university. Only then we can progress, and we are now really qualified, I would say, to educate the future 21st century graduates.
Thank you, Prof. Karim. So I would like to thank all of our panelists. Could you please give a big clap to them, and lots of insight to us. And very much thank you for attending this session. And I would like to pass this session back to our MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tazli, for moderating this session, and thank you to our distinguished panelists, Professor Dr. Abdul Karim Alias, Professor Dr. Maznah, Associate Professor Dr. Khairiyah, and Dr. Norrizan Razali. Again, please join me in thanking our distinguished panels and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda for today is the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, or CETaL, Grant Approval Letter Presentation Ceremony. For your information, CETaL is offered to all UTP academicians who are interested to do action research in teaching and learning. In line with the UTP vision to become a leader in technology education and Center for Creativity and Innovation, CETaL research is offered to enhance the teaching and learning activities in UTP. For the inaugural first and second cycle of CETaL grant, CETaL received a total number of 24 proposals for the first cycle and 14 proposals for the second cycle. After a stringent review process and final endorsement, 13 projects and 7 projects for first cycle and second cycle of CETaL grant will be awarded today. For the presentation ceremony, may we invite Yang Berbahagia Datuk Engineer Dr. YBhg Hashim, Vice Chancellor of UTP, accompanied by Professor Engineer Dr. Ahmad Fazil Muhammad Hani, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, and Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan, Head of CETaL, to the stage. For the first recipient, please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Bashar Mohammed with the learning approach, problem-based learning. Next, Associate Professor Dr. Chong Fai Kit with the learning approach of action learning. Associate Professor Dr. Iraiban Ilambazuti with the learning approach, conceive, design, implement, operate, or CDO. Dr. Iraiban is not here with us today. Next, please welcome Dr. Subarna Sivapalan with the learning approach, transformative learning. Next, Professor Mariani binti Awang with the learning approach, experiential learning. Moving on to Associate Professor Dr. Jafriza Jaafar with the learning approach, collaborative learning. We have the representative firstly. Next, Dr. Eun Cheng Yi with the learning approach of visual learning. Dr. Daraja Engida Walter Michael with the learning approach of active learning. Dr. Norin Iza Arshad with the learning approach, visual learning. Our very own Dr. Muhammad Tazli bin Azizan with the learning approach of cooperative learning. And the final one for Cycle 1 is Dr. Amy Eliani Mustafa with the learning approach of e-portfolio. Our CETaL grant holders for Cycle 2, please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Jose Antonio Gomez Ventanen. Next is Dr. Mat Abdul Salam with the learning approach of flipped and active learning. Next is Dr. Raja Ahmad Iskandar bin Raja Yaakob with the learning approach of flipped learning. Encik Muhammad Luqman bin Hassan with the learning approach, experiential learning. We have the representative for today. Next is Dr. Bawadi bin Abdullah with the learning approach of flipped learning. And finally, Dr. Muhammad Fakizan bin Romli with the learning approach of active learning. And we have the representative for Dr. Muhammad Fakizan. Next is a token of appreciation presentation to our panelists for today. Please welcome Professor Dr. Abdul Karim Alias. Professor Dr. Maznah Hussain. Associate Professor Dr. Khairiyah Yusof. And Datin Dr. Norrizan Razali. Before we adjourn, Dato', we have a lucky draw session. So we would like you to pick 3 ballots for today. We have 3 lucky draw prizes for today. And I was informed that it was a Samsung tab, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, we have the first one, Norlaili binti Amir. That's we can pick one more, yeah? The second one is Madiha Yasir. The next two name is very interesting because these two are from my team building cohort this year. One Zairin Nisa Yahya. And Dr. Hassan Bayumi. Thank you very much, Dato'. Thank you very much, Professor Fazil, and thank you very much, Dr. Tazli. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's ceremony. We would like to thank all the distinguished guests, all the forum panelists, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence today. For the VIPs, we have tea served at VIP suite, so you'll be ushered over. And for everyone else, we have tea break for you at Green Room. Till then, Assalamualaikum and thank you very much.
Nanti bagi kat I stop tengok you dulu.
This one.